Joining me now with a look at the legal side of this, ABC News contributor and managing partner at the Cochran firm, Chana Lloyd. Chana, thanks for joining us. Alex Jones, we know, back in court today. What's the very latest?
What we're looking at is the families here have gotten this judgment against him, and we're looking at punitive damages. The jury has to decide what the punitive damages will be because the court has found that this behavior and his actions were so egregious that punitive damages are warranted because they're meant to deter people from doing these types of activities and behaviors.
So, Chana, Jones could also now face criminal perjury charges. What do we know about that possibility? And if he's found guilty, what punishment would he face?
Whenever we're talking about perjury, let's remember that when you're in court, you are sworn to tell the truth to the court. So if there's ever, as there is in this instance, where there are text messages that reflect that you did not tell the court the absolute truth and that you lied about something, the court can then hold you in contempt. There are civil penalties and fines and criminal time that can also be associated if he is found guilty of perjury.
And Chana, what's next for Alex Jones? I mean, he's expected to go before 2 different judges in Connecticut next week. Are other Sandy Hook families planning to sue?
Absolutely. They are looking at moving forward with other lawsuits because this was not the only family that was affected by the statements that he was making. And so these other families are going to be looking to hold him accountable for the statements that they made against him as well.
No, he apologized for spreading other conspiracy claims. The list is long, right? The Oklahoma City, Boston Marathon bombings, the mass shootings in Las Vegas, Parkland, Florida. So could he potentially face lawsuits for the comments that he made about each of those events?
It's going to depend because we have to remember that you have to show in order to prove defamation that you slandered a particular person and that they were harmed. So just speaking about an event on a whole isn't enough. It has to be tied to an injury to a particular party, a company that he spoke about, or something of that nature. But there has to be a tangible injury to the individual that is claiming defamation.
Getting back to how he is behaving presently, we know he's talking about his own case on his show, InfoWars Show. The judge did not appreciate that. Is it going to get him into more trouble?
Not yet. Really, realistically, you're not supposed to talk about your case because you could say something that is either prejudicial or you can say something that is now brought into court, right? So out-of-court statements can be brought in depending on what is said and how it's communicated. So he's walking a very fine line. The judge in this particular case doesn't necessarily have a gag order. So, you know, there's a fine line he's walking here, and it's clear that the judge is paying very close attention to this.
So, Chana, what precedent comes from the outcome for conspiracy theorists, whatever happens to Alex Jones? I mean, could we see others, QAnon, election deniers? Could people like this be charged in the future?
Absolutely. What this is going to set a precedent for is that, and what it should be, is that you are accountable for the statements that you make. So when you're making a statement about a company or an individual that you know is false, that is a malicious statement that could harm that particular company, entity, or person, you are going to be held accountable for it. And that's what we're seeing in this particular suit, is that he's accountable for the injuries that these families have suffered by him stating that they are actors and crisis actors. So that is what he's being held accountable for. And other organizations can also be held accountable for statements that they're making about individuals and entities.
So just before we let you go, getting back to that perjury question, in the piece that we just saw, I mean, you could see that the attorney for the Sandy Hook parents basically had him reading his rights, right, catching him in a lie. So how can he dodge those perjury charges? It seems fairly cut and dry to people who are following the case.
Perjury is fairly cut and dry. It's essentially that he made a statement saying that I never made these text messages. I wasn't aware of any, but the truth is there were, and we now have proof that there were. And perjury is the very simple charge of lying to the court. So when the court reads these text messages, if they're in direct opposition of the statements that he made earlier in court, he is going to be found guilty of perjury.
Chana Lloyd, thank you so much for lending us your expertise. We really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.